All right, all right. Welcome into another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. Coming at you today, the fearsome twosome here. Russell is inactive, healthy scratch. He's watching this from the booth, so to speak. But we're going to be holding it down today, talking everything about the home opener recap. We're going to be talking the top 5 things, questions leading into the season. Get in the chat, like and subscribe, and let's go. All right. Well, Joe, how's it going, my man? How you doing today?
Good. Not too bad. I mean, so a little bit of obviously back and forth with I'm a Yankees guy, so they win yesterday, but then I watched the Kings and that performance last night, so a little bit of a back and forth from a sports standpoint, but we're here today ready to rock. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Well, the Dodgers won and then Kings lost, so it is what it is. And today, helped a friend move a little bit. She's following her dreams, going to Mississippi, so good on her. Loving people chase their dreams. I like it. So just a little tired there, so I'm ready for a nice nap after this. So I guess I'd be going to sleep, not really a nap at 10 o'clock or so, but I'm ready for that.
I was telling Brandon before the show, I accidentally did that yesterday. I was on the couch. I was watching I was actually watching the Rangers on the laptop. I had the Yankees on the TV. It was probably about 9:30. I'm in the East Coast, and Kings were starting, within 30, 45 minutes or so. And, well, out I went on the couch for about, 25 minutes or so, but woke up in time and ended up being good because I ended up being up to 1 a.m. to watch the game. So it was good.
Yeah, your internal clock kicked off, huh?
So we're not in mid-season form yet, Rando, on the sleep pattern for the West Coast games.
Rich is already in the chat. Go Kings, go! What up, dudes? What's up, Rich? Thank you for coming in here. Thank you for everybody else that's in here watching us live or listening on your way to work tomorrow morning. Appreciate you guys as well. Let's start it off with the game recap. Coming in here, the home opener recap here. Obviously. Based on the Twitter chatter, everybody wants Sean Durzi traded. Off the team, off the roster, never going to skate again. Thank you for all the memories there, Durzi, but your services are no longer needed. No, I mean, but that's what it feels like. But I'm joking. But man, what a boneheaded play that was. Let's just start there. Like that last play made no sense. That last play made 0 sense.
It didn't. It didn't. And obviously, people that follow me on Twitter knows I've been defending Durzi pretty much all day today, but the last play was a mistake. It was a pretty clear mistake. He's standing behind the net. I don't really know if he was planning on sitting there and waiting it out and going to run the clock out. Let's just get to overtime and grab the point. That's what it seemed like at first. You can sense a little bit of frustration when a couple of the players, Arvidsson was swinging kind of through his arm, handing to the side, like, what are we doing here? And he makes tries to make a stretch pass, which looked pretty low percentage. There was a couple of Vegas players there, and but I will say on that one play, so the stretch pass was bad, but it's not as if he had a turnover in the slot point blank. Like Vegas got the puck on their side of the red line, came on a rush. But if you look at that video, it was a 3-on-3, and the Kings had a back checker. The Kings outnumbered Vegas on that play, so we can hammer Durzi for the stretch pass all we want. It was a bad play. That's fair. I'm sure he would admit the same. But that should not end up in the back of the net when you've got a 3-on-3 with a back checker. It was pretty poorly done, in my opinion, by Matt Roy and in part by Trevor Moore. I think there was a pretty big miscommunication there. There's no excuse for a 3-on-3 to have, with a back checker, to have somebody like Mark Stone that wide open. So that was a pretty poorly executed from the defensive side of things. But yeah, bad play. But I think the hate is going a little far here for me.
What else do you expected in Twitter?
And listen, I thought before that he was Sean Durzi. Right? He made some exciting plays going forward. He had a really nice assist that led to the Kempe goal. He made some mistakes. He's going to be high risk, high reward. Is anybody surprised at that? Like, why? I don't understand. Was that a surprise to people? Like, this is we know what Sean Dursey is. So I guess I'm a little confused at why all of a sudden that was unacceptable when this is who he is. Sure, maybe there's going to be some progression. He gets a little bit better, can tighten some things up. But at his core, this is the type of defenseman that he is. And that's, you're going to have to live with some of those mistakes. And I don't know what you think. My opinion is, because, Todd McClellan hinted there's going to be, said there's going to be some lineup changes for the game against Seattle. Do you think Dursey should come out, in your opinion?
Well, he was playing the left side, so are they going to put Walker on the left and then put Clark in on the third pair?
Or put Clark on the left and just outright, and just swap Dursey out. I don't like. For me, it's a very clear no, and he should stay in the lineup. Do not take him on. The reason I say that, we know what Sean Dursey is. He's gonna be this, again, offensive defenseman, high risk, high reward. And I think if the coaching staff is going to scratch a guy after a game where he makes a couple of mistakes, also makes a couple of really nice plays, again, that's the type of player he's going to be. I think scratching him sends a pretty poor message, in my opinion. Now, obviously, we're not there at the rink in terms of like in the coach's room talking to the players in the players meeting. So maybe they've been very explicit with him and said, listen, this has got to stop, or you're going to be watching the game from the press box, all that stuff. But barring that, like, he should play. It's a vote of confidence from the coaching staff to say, hey, kid, we know you're going to make some mistakes. We're going to live with them. We know what you bring offensively. Like, to have him put right back out there, that's the way to do it, in my opinion. Because between these three, Dursey, Walker, and Clark, this is who the team has opted to say this is going to be, RD3, LD2 for the short term here, at least. So you have to kind of massage that. And you've got two of these kids that are extremely inexperienced. Dursey had a cup of coffee last year. Clark hasn't played a game yet. He's going to soon. And then one of which is coming off major surgery. So none of this is going to be comfortable, especially with one of them playing on their off side on the second pair. So there's going to be some growing pains here that you just have to expect. So I don't want to see a guy scratched because of that. I would, especially, like, he's not the only one that had a bad game either, on the back end. So I say it's a vote of confidence. Get him back out there. Let him play through that. Let him show up at crypto again, and make it right. That's the way I would approach it.
I mean, he's going to get scratched every once in a while anyways. I think they're going to have a healthy rotation there. But yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, scratching him to send a message over at one stupid play where he had an assist and everything like that, I think it's kind of something that can be talked to in the office. Like, hey, where were you even thinking about doing there? Like, it almost seemed indecision. Like, hey,
maybe. Mm-hmm.
It seemed like, hey, let's just walk this thing out. Let's make sure we get a point. And then he was like, well, we should get 2 points, and then it was like, let's and then he was just trying to, you almost saw the cogs in his head. He's like looking down the ice doing like this and like, okay, well, no. And then, okay, yeah, let's rifle it, and try to get it down there. Yeah. Clark needs to play tomorrow. So whoever they decide to take out, I'm fine Walker with
for me,
but it should be Walker in my opinion as well. But that rotation, I don't know how they plan on doing it. I don't foresee Clark playing his 9 games in the first 10, so they're going to have a rotation. It's going to be what it is. I think the kid needs to get in the game tomorrow though, at least, but I don't think they should scratch Dursey as a penalty or something of that nature.
And I think that's what the optics would look like if Dursey is scratched tomorrow. It's going to be, he had a bad game. He makes a pretty, glaring mistake at the end of the game, which again, kind of think like Todd McClellan said in the post game, like, yeah, it was a bad play, but like, there was a lot going on in the game, but also in that play after the stretch pass that fell apart. So I think it's a little overblown personally. And I just think the optics don't look good for scratching a kid that it's going to look like because of a play, which I would understand that it wasn't, if perhaps it was like a plan going in. Dursey's playing the first game, we're going to rotate him out. Like, so it may not be It's just that's what it would look like, and I don't like the message that it could send to the young defenseman. I think it looks better for him to say, get out there, answer the bell, start him against the Kraken, that type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so too. It'll be there. I mean, you're talking about a defensive defenseman, and when we saw 51 shots, right? And Roy was the only -2. You're not sitting Roy because he was on the ice for a certain amount of goals. Like, it's just, if you make continual mistakes or you're showing continual lapses in judgment, then that's where there's a problem.
Sure.
But although the long-term adage is mental mistakes hurt more for coaches than physical mistakes, right? So because people get beat, or you miss a puck, or you miss a pass, or you miss a wide open net, or whatever, it happens because it's sports. But the mental mistakes are really the tough ones. Taking penalties in the offensive zone, those types of things,
Very fair.
really can hurt somebody. And so maybe, I know it would come off as like a lashing, or a penalty for him or something like that. But maybe they want to do that. Hey, watch this game from the press box. Everybody has lapses of judgment. You'll get him on the next one. We're rotating this. I wouldn't be upset if they sat him, but I'm more on the Walker side, in my opinion, as well.
Agree.
Let's get into the power play. No goals for the power play. We thought we were going to score, 100% of the time based on what the preseason was going on. I'm trying to look up here what we were on the power play. We were 0 for 3. What did you see there? I mean, obviously the first power play seemed to struggle to even get into the zone. It looked more a lot of a tape of last season. But what did you see as far as how it was run?
Yeah, and I've watched them back today. So I actually thought through the neutral zone, and you can see it with Fiala how good he is, and that was one of his strengths, his zone entries, and I think he did a pretty good job of that. Him and Kempe through the neutral zone, I think that's going to click really well. I think as this goes along and they get a little bit more comfortable, I'm a lot more optimistic in the zone entries than I was last year. Kevin Fiala is a big difference maker in that aspect. For as much as we saw, some positives in the preseason, I still was a little skeptical at times because it was still very perimeter. There was sort of usage into the bumper, and they were starting to see it. I hated it. Kempe, and this is not Kempe's fault. This is he is asked to play there, and I just don't think he looks very good there. There was a situation in the third period, and I think I don't know if I put it on Twitter or not, but he stood still as the puck is moving around, and that bumper guy's got to move. He's got to be facing the play. He's got to be able to get into spots and be moving into areas to be an option, and he looked lost. And I don't think it's his fault because I just don't think that's the best spot for him. We saw how well Velarde worked down low. I prefer him to Arvidsson. I just don't think it's in the early going. They're going to give it to Arvidsson, it looks like, and I guess that's fine. It is what it is. You saw the goal that Kaliev scored. I've talked about at length over the last year or so options below the goal line, right? The stuff on the perimeter, and you're setting up these one-time clappers for one-timers when it goes from Doughty to either to say Fiala or to Kempe, whoever happens to be on the right circle at the time. That's a one-shot thing and it's out. It's not a high percentage. It's just that the move that pass isn't going to get it done. Doughty to Kempe probably isn't going to get it done. If it's Kopitar to Kempe, or if it's from down low Velarde or Arvidsson to Kempe, that's one thing. This top stuff, perimeter stuff, is not going to cut it. In the second unit, the goal Kaliev scored came right after the power play expired. But what did they do? They had the puck along the left-hand wall. It goes down below the goal line to Velarde, makes a really nice, creative, skill play to Kaliev, who finishes it. That is how you operate a power play. You work the down low, work the below the goal line. Kaliev smart in the bumper. It's not surprising to see the success from the guys like Kaliev in the bumper, Velarde down low. We've been seeing it in Ontario. We've seen it in the preseason. Kaliev looked great in the bumper when he was put there last year. The outright refusal to use these guys in the top unit, I don't get it. I don't get it. And again, this isn't, and be clear, this isn't an overreaction to one game. I've had this same exact issue for a long time now. And I don't. They're trying to fit square pegs into round holes sometimes on the top unit. I love, though, I will say, I love that Kopitar is on the left circle. I think that is a change that we talked about last year. That is going. I do think that's much, much better. One quick thing I wanted to point out, because I watched a lot of the Maple Leafs power play in preseason, a couple of games. Mitch Marner is like a floater down below the goal line. So creative, and there's a lot of it. Almost flows through him rather than flowing up top for Morgan Riley. It flows down below with Mitch Marner. I envisioned like that's where Fiala has that skill set. He can be that down below the goal line, kind of weaving in and out, like, and being a creative player and setting up from down there. I would love to see that, but that's my quick take on the power play in the game one. It's early days, obviously it's not surprising. People would say a lot last year, right? PP2 looked better with the kids than PP1. Same thing. I mean, the movement in the zone was just better when you incorporate Velarde down low, Kaliev in the bumper. We'll see what happens as we go forward, but I'd like to see somebody else in the bumper than Kempe.
Yeah, not that Kempe is old or whatever, but these young kids just seem to have are willing to take more creative license when it comes to those types of things. I don't know if that's just a generational thing, if that's just more of a gear towards offense when, now in the younger game. But it just seems like a lot of these young guys have that creativity. Even Kupari, when he got limited action on the power play, seemed to be a little bit creative as well.
And I'm not like Kempe. I think does a really nice job on the flank.
Yeah.
He's very, very adept to read the play when the puck is on Kopitar's stick on the left side. He's very good at going up and down and reading that, when to go down, when to come back up. Like he's does a very nice job of that. He's got a really good shot and he gets it off quick when he's in that right circle. I don't understand moving him away from there where he's strong and putting him in a bumper where he legitimately looked lost. And I don't think it's his fault.
Do you think that was by design, or do you think that was just because
really
the way it flowed?
Him being there or him looking lost?
Him being there.
I think that's by design.
Because in the preseason, he was never there.
We started to see that late in the preseason. If you watch that Anaheim game late, he was there, and there was actually some plays between him and Kopitar that looked okay, but it almost as if you watch the power play in the third period when they actually got into the zone and set up, Kempe, when the play was over to Fiala or was in that bottom in the far right corner, Kempe was still standing next to Kopitar. He was just waiting for the puck to come all the way back around to Kopitar. He can't do that. He's got to move. He's got to move. And I was just, I almost stood up and yelled at my TV. It was like, he was standing just waiting there. Like, okay, guys, get the puck, go to Doughty and bring it over to Kopitar. It's like, well, you've got to be somebody that make yourself an outlet. So that part, I don't know if he was told that to stay tighter to Kopitar, or if he just is still getting comfortable to the position because it's not one of his strengths. That I don't know. I hope he wouldn't be told to stand there, though.
Yeah, you gotta move. You can't be a statue. I think the only person that ever just stands still and has been effective in it is Ovechkin.
Very few can do that.
Any notes there as far as obviously Jonathan Quick, 51 plus shots. He looks excellent. I think he was the only reason that game was even close in the third period.
I thought he was great. So let's, and to be clear, with knocks on Durzi, knocks on the power play, whatever. I thought as a whole, the Kings were very, very much second best. Vegas was much better by a wide margin than the Kings. They had no answer for Jack Eichel. I thought Logan Thompson was good in goal for Vegas. Quick was great. Gabe Velarde was really good. I think Quentin Byfield, I thought it was noteworthy, and I don't know how much of this is, he missed a week and a half of preseason time because of an illness. So I don't know how much of this is like them still easing him back in, but he didn't get any special teams last night, which is, again, don't know if that's by design and they're working on him kind of just getting back in the swing of things, or if that's something that they are not going to use him on special teams. I guess we'll see. But he was fine. I thought he was good at 5-on-5. Him and Velarde were a couple of the bright spots, but as a whole, it was not pretty.
What did you think about Grunstrom? Obviously, he didn't have a very good game. I think he was not really noticeable much at all. And you kind of, like, he was so noticeable in the preseason. We were so happy for him to be in there. Obviously, bad games can happen, but it just really seemed like he just wasn't.
Well, I think he, along with a lot of the guys, I think it was that way for a lot of Kings, and I think that's the one thing to not get too up or down for that matter in preseason, because these lineups are all over the place, not only with the Kings but with who they're playing. So Grunstrom may look great in a game against a team filled with AHL guys, right? So it's that said, like I think it, to me, this was largely a throwaway game. Like, I don't want to dismiss it. Like, it can't happen. I know that they talked after the game like this, it was bad. It's got to be fixed. And I trust that they will. And I think that they will. But I think, yeah, it wasn't a great game from Grunstrom. He didn't play a ton of minutes. I wonder if he'll be coming out of the lineup for Brendan Lemieux tomorrow. I guess we'll see. But, I don't think it's any sort of, anything damning on Grunstrom in any way. It's just, it was a bad game. It was a bad game for a lot of guys. And, this was a very good Vegas team. The only thing that's going to hurt Vegas is their injuries. And if they're healthy, which they are right now, they're going to be really, really good and really tough to beat. So it was a tough game. Sometimes home openers can be tough. It is what it is. You hope that they'll come with a little bit of a better effort on Thursday.
This was another thing that I thought was really bad. We gave a bad goal. Tom Kabash coming in here, and more mental errors. How about the bad line changes in the second period? Seemed to have been a problem in the preseason, and then giving up a 3-on-1 last night. Yeah,
for sure. That's a great call. And listen, I'm not on the bench to know how that's getting called out. I know I coach I coach the forward group of on the team that I coach here locally in the high school team, and it's very much, you're calling up who's next, and I'm coaching kids, they're high school kids, so it's a little bit different. But it's like, one thing I always say is know who you got, know who you got. And I hear them, I got this guy, so they all know. So I don't know where the miscue was, but there's a miscue there, whether that was from the coach not relaying what line was up, whether the guys, there was a hesitation or a miscue or something. There's a miscue there. Tom's 100% right. That directly led to the 3-on-1. And that can't happen.
Exactly. I think we'll turn it around. I think the bright spot for me, I think Gabe's face said it all. Like, that was the bright spot of the game for me. Gabe's face said it all. Like, he scored the goal. It seemed like all the elation from all the previous seasons and everything like that just like left his body. Like, man, it feels good to be trusted. It feels good to play actual minutes
and contribute.
And contribute. Yeah. So, I mean, fantastic. Obviously, you get Byfield with a point there. Callie have the young guys, which is going to be one of our foreshadowing, one of our topics here going forward. But yeah, ultimately, hey, you lose a game. It was a bad loss as far as we got outplayed and then a bonehead mistake. It would have been nice to at least get one and start the season off. But hey, turn the page, move forward. Hopefully we see Clark's debut. I think there will be a change in the forward group, whether that's Lemieux or Jad in there on the wing. We'll see. Maybe they'll run it back because the forward group offensively look good. But we'll see how it works out. I mean, Kraken are supposed to be taking the next step this year. We'll see what that team looks like.
Yeah, and they're playing tonight. So the Kings are going to get the Kraken on a back-to-back. They're in Anaheim. I would imagine the Kings are going to see Martin Jones. I'm assuming Grubauer is starting tonight. I haven't checked yet to see if that's the case. He is, and the Ducks are already up 1-0, by the way. So yeah, they're going to get Martin Jones. They're going to get a team that's on a back-to-back. The Kings, I expect to be really hungry after looking so bad. This reeks of a situation to play a guy like Brendan Lemieux to get things going early. Wouldn't be surprised to see him start. That wouldn't surprise me at all to get the building going, to get the boys going. So yeah, this is an opportunity for the Kings to jump out quick on a team that's going to be playing on a back-to-back.
Exactly. Let's kick it over to our sponsor before we get into the top five here. DraftKings coming in. Ooh. Hockey fans, it's finally time to hit the ice again, and thanks to DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. You're in for a season of a lifetime. New customers can bet $5 on any team and get $200 in free bets if they win. You could even bet on your Kings tomorrow. Why not do a parlay, a triple matchup? Colorado's playing Calgary. Vegas over Chicago, maybe. Kings definitely over the Kraken. Lay that parlay down, win some big money. on your DraftKings bets. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team wins, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at a bigger payout. DraftKings is safe, secure, reliable. You can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN and bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $200 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions may apply. See show notes for details. All right, so we're going to cutting in here to the top five. But before we do that, I want to answer, see if what you think. You think Cal's getting the pipes tomorrow? Or do you think they're going to go to Quick?
No, I think it's Cal, and I think it should be Cal. I think early in the season, you got to try to get as many guys into a rhythm as you can, which is why they're, like I said, they're going to get Clark in, I'm sure, tomorrow. I would expect Lemieux in tomorrow. So this means pretty much everybody except for Anderson Dolan, unless they make 2 forward changes, is going to get some ice time here early, and I think that's a good thing. Get guys going early, get everybody in a rhythm, and you need to see what Cal's got quickly. You need to get him going. So, yeah, I think he will be, and I think he should.
I think it's going to be about a 50-50 split. Do you think for what, like 10 games before they start riding the hot hand or what?
Yeah, I would think they're going to probably rotate depending on some back-to-backs, maybe some matchups and how the travel looks early. But I would imagine that you're not going to want to ride Quick too heavy early. So, yeah, I would think it'd be at least right about a 50-50 for a little bit here.
All right, let's get into the top 5 questions. Speaking of goalies, question number 1, goalie tandem coming into the season. I think there's two concerns here, or questions about that need to be answered. One is, obviously the split. Quick is getting older, so we'll start there. The split coming into the season is largely going to be dependent on how well Cal plays. But if you were to guess where it is, I mean, I don't think Jonathan Quick will say that he could probably play all 82 games just with the type of guy he is. But he's not going to be able to. He's not even probably going to be able to do 60 games. So the split needs to be at least, 50, 32 in that range. You would hope Cal makes it a 50-50 split. Mm-hmm. But where do you kind of see that shaking down if you were to guess?
I tend to be a little bit more optimistic on the Cal Peterson that we're going to see. So maybe it's going to be, something like I can see Cal getting like maybe 45 to 50 games. So maybe it leans actually a tick on Cal's side. But obviously that, as you alluded to, that depends on Cal's play. And not for nothing, if Quick played it like he did last night, he's going to play 50 games. I don't know that he should play much more than that. I mean, it's going to depend a lot on Cal. It really is, because I think at the end of the day, if the Kings are going to try to they're going to be in a dogfight this season to try to make playoffs, and it's going to get to a point where if Cal's struggling, they're just going to have no choice but to ride Quick. And you hope it doesn't get to that, but that is a possibility.
That would be a bad possibility in my opinion. I hope that
yes,
you need Cal to at least play in some sort of relevant hockey. I think that's the second part of this question is this team is going to ride basically with their goalie situation, and there's a lot of what ifs. Based on the way Quick played last night, he still got it. Mm-hmm. How long can he keep that kind of play up, or how many games remains to be seen? And then you need elevated play from Cal Peterson. You need him to do that, because if the Kings are going to be relevant in this division, which we all hope they are, and they should be, you can't just like have throwaway games or have to beat teams 5-4 every time Cal's in net. Like, he's going to have relevant starts for us to be competitive.
He is. And the other thing to consider here is, you're going to there's going to be times or games where you have, Durzi and Clark in the lineup at the same time. Could be against Seattle. You're going to have games where, you've got those two, then you've got the young guys. Like, you're going to have a Velarde and Byfield on the ice at the same time with the Brandt Clark. And there's just more opportunity for things to kind of fall apart a little bit with some youth and some inexperience. And shoot, we just saw it. They gave up 51 shots on goal last night. That doesn't matter who's in net. That's a problem. So, they're going to really maybe even lean on or need the goaltending more so than they have in the past, because there's some inexperience on the back end.
Yeah, I think you're looking at that, or maybe we just be positive, and that means the puck's going the other direction because they're so
That's the
offensively
hope.
gifted.
That is the hope. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the biggest thing. I mean, we talked about it with Sinbin and how their goalie situation is going to define their season. I don't think we're too much different.
No,
I
I
think,
agree. I agree with that, by the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
if we get, I think the offense will improve. Obviously, Fiala is going to help that. I think the power play, which we'll get to later, should improve a little bit. But ultimately, the goalie play is going to really affect how we finish in this division. I think that's why I put it as the number one problem or the number one question, because I think it greatly defines how the point total at the end of the year is how this goalie situation shakes down.
Yeah, and if it struggles, like I said, I think people would sign up for what Quick gave last year. And if and even that could be a lot to ask for somebody as he's getting more tread on the tires, or wear on the tires, I should say. So I think that it is a big question because you look up and down the division, you have Thatcher Demko is one of the best goalies in the league in Vancouver. Jacob Markstrom, really good goaltender. Jack Campbell's an improvement for Edmonton. I think you're right in saying it's different with Thompson and Hill versus Quick in Cal, right? Obviously, Quick's the veteran with a much more of a history to him, but it's very similar in that there's a tandem that we don't really know yet who or if somebody's going to take the reins there. So I think that is a fair point. Anaheim, obviously, with Gibson. So like this, it's going to.
I mean, we're the only two teams in the division that don't have a clear number one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say Quick is the number one, but you're saying that you think he's going to play only 32 games. So it's not like they're not. I guess what maybe when I say that is that you're looking at every other team that you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to ride those goaltenders.
Yep.
They are going to have them play 50 plus, 60 plus games where, I mean, you saw Calgary did it with Markstrom last year, even in games where you think they should have played the backup, they were playing him. So we're the only team when, if we can get competent play from Cal Peterson, that'll be a benefit because their legs will be fresh.
Yeah, no, I think at best case is that it's right around a 50-50 split. I say that maybe Cal gets to 50 games. But that's a very rosy outlook, I think.
That's a pretty bold prediction right there.
Yeah, but I think the Kings are going to need that to happen. I don't think you can be leaning on Jonathan Quick the way they leaned on him last season, because I think toward the end it's gonna pay a price. But we'll see. There's so much that is on Peterson's shoulders really this season in terms of how this team goes forward.
Richard's very positive here. Tim Thomas can win a cup at 40. Quickie can get it done.
Hey, let's do it.
Going in the second one here, taking next steps. And so this is about the youth, the flood of the youth. Obviously, we got plenty of, Byfield got a point. Velarde got a goal. Kaliev got a goal. Got to celebrate an Artie party there. So Clark's been preseason hype trained to the max. And so, a lot of this youth took their first step last year. The next step has got to be taken for this team to be relevant. We're going to be relevant, and for this team to take get a chance at maybe winning the division or taking, the first round getting out of the first round. These kids are going to have to take the next steps, and maybe, maybe become relevant stars in this league to where they're pushing for second line minutes. Where do you think the step needs to be taken most, and maybe from who? Maybe pick on a certain player or just in general?
Well, so we've talked at length, I think, right, about Quinton Byfield and how important his progression is this season. He doesn't have to be a dynamic, dominant player yet, but we really do need to start seeing some steps that he's going to be, an impactful player in the NHL. And I thought the first game he looked pretty good. I think Kaliev, we said this on last show, a couple of shows ago, how, we've always talked about how, prospect growth isn't linear, but it's been very linear, I feel like, with Kaliev, and he just is going to keep trudging along that little, he's like the, what's the game at Price is Right, the yodeler guy, the mountain climber. That's Kaliev. And I think he's going to continue on that trend. But there's a player that I will throw out there that I would include in this. And that's Trevor Moore. You know, he had a pretty big breakout year. I know he's not a young quote unquote player. He's in his, upper 20s at this point, but he really broke on the scene last year. And where does his season continue that, or was that a blip? Is that a one-time thing and that's it? Or is there something there with Trevor Moore? Because that second line, that Dano line, was so huge last year for the Kings because of the way those three clicked. And if one of those things falls, if Moore kind of slips up a bit or just doesn't have the same type of season, I would include him in this conversation. I know it's a little different because he's not one of the young prospects, but I think for what he provided last year, kind of out of the blue, I don't think anybody thought Trevor Moore a second line player, and he had a big second half. I think that
there's a lot of questions on that second line. I think. I mean, Dano, as much as I like to know, he had his career high in goals. You have career high in every aspect for Trevor Moore. Can you repeat it? I think that's why we brought that question up earlier in the offseason. Is it Trevor Moore? Is it Dano? I mean, is it repeatable? Because if he goes back down to 20 points less, then where else are you getting that production? Does he stay on the second line? Does somebody have to move up like a Velarde to play that line? Is it going to be that effective? So I really think that's an astute observation. Where do you kind of lean on that? Where do you think he can make that? Where's the next step for him? Is it just being consistent?
Yes. Yes. I think that's exactly what it is. Because I don't think we're going to see Trevor Moore, like 60-point player Trevor Moore, right? I think if he can be a steady and stable contributor, though, to that second line and be that good complementary piece to that line, then I think that's, and do it night in, night out. I think that's a big deal. Mini tangent here. People like to hate on the modelers with all the, Kings finishing wherever in this many points. Listen to all the questions that we're asking of the Kings. The second line, there's questions. Dano had a breakout year. Moore had a breakout year, right? Kevin Fiala's coming off a career year. Adrian Kempe, career year, right? Their number one center is a year older. He's up in his, mid 30s at this point. You have a third line that has Quentin Byfield, less than a season NHL experience. Kaliev just played. We just talked about the goaltending. We're going to talk about the defense. Is it that crazy to think the Kings are going to have there's a lot of question marks here for this team. So to think that there is a kind of, downside here that we as Kings fans don't want to acknowledge, it's on the table at least, right? There's questions that there's a downside to this season.
There's always a wide spectrum of what the outcomes could be. And if the Kings don't make the playoffs, it's because a lot of these jumps don't happen again.
Perhaps.
There's not consistency in those positions. I think let's go back down. Obviously, we talked to Byfield ad nauseum. I think he needs to be at least a 40, 50-point guy this season for
I think he will.
And so that's that kind of thing. Let's flip it over to the guy that's been the preseason darling, scored the first goal of the season for the Kings in Velarde. Consistency is the name of the game for him too, right? I mean, when he gets in there, we all know he's one of the most talented guys that we have coming up.
Yep.
It just hasn't been consistent, and the motivation doesn't seem like it's been there. I'm not going to speak for a guy that, he doesn't have motivation or he's not putting in effort. I'm sure he is. It just didn't seem that way. Like his answers in press conferences, the face-offs are what they are and all this kind of stuff like that. It just didn't seem that he was mentally ready to go. And I think this offseason he changed that. And with him being more consistent, he needs to take that next step. And for him, it's scoring on a consistent basis, being a consistent defensive, not a liability, and the power play. I guess instead of taking next steps, maybe we should have just called this consistency. Will the Kings be consistent with the progression that they've taken from last season?
I mean, I do think it's fair, next step for Gabe Velarde. I think that's really, I think you're right and fair to ask that. But, I think that it is consistency, but it's also opportunity and taking advantage of opportunity. He did it in the preseason, and, game one, he gets an opportunity playing third line, and he contributes. He puts a goal in. So what I would say, I really do believe the move to wing has changed his entire game and his outlook and really his career. You could argue that it just is. It's freeing him up to play a little bit more and be a little bit more that offensive player without having to have that the two-way defensive center to go goal line to goal line. He doesn't have to worry quite the same way about that. I really think it's freed him up to play a much more looser game. And I think you're seeing that. And I don't want to say that's the total reason, but I really think it's a factor, him playing on the wing now. So you're going to have some bumps in the road there as he gets used to the position, mainly in defensive zone. But boy, we're two big Gabe Velarde's fans on this pod. We liked him. We loved watching him with the Reign last year. And I think that getting this opportunity is big for him. And I think he could be really good for Quentin Byfield as well. Those two, we talked about Byfield and Kaliev being a duo. Maybe it's Byfield and Velarde this year with Kaliev still being slotting on the fourth line right now. I love what Gabe Velarde is doing, and I really hope that he maintains this. He gets this opportunity and he grabs it and he keeps it, and he doesn't let anybody take it from him, because he's an extremely talented kid. And I'd love to see him get even more opportunity as the season goes along, depending on what happens to the rest of the lineup. But really, really big Gabe Velarde fan. And I think a progression of him would also mean a progression of Quentin Byfield.
100%. Where does the next step for guys who came in? Obviously Jordan Spence is starting the AHL, but Durzi is among that conversation. Where's the next step, do you believe, for those types of guys?
So for a guy like Durzi, I think it is, it's trying to limit some of the mistakes. Maybe pick and choose when to be that riverboat gambler. I would never want to rein a guy in too much. I want him to be Sean Durzi. I want him to do what makes him great and understand there's going to be mistakes in that game. But if we can tighten up some of the things, you alluded to the mental part, the mistake last night seems much more mental than physical. If we can maybe work on those things, I'd like to see that cleaned up a little bit for Durzi. Jordan Spence, he did everything he was asked. He had a great season last year in Ontario. He was called up, did fine in Los Angeles, but he's an extremely young kid that I'm certain there was no expectation, for him to play in the NHL last year. But with the amount of injuries, he ended up getting a shot. But he just needs to keep doing what he's doing. And now he's going to be elevated into a role where he's probably playing that top pair in Ontario. Now you're going to be playing top pair minutes. You're going to be playing the tough 5-on-5 minutes against the best, the opponent's best players. How do you handle that defensively? We know what he brings offensively, similar to Durzi, frankly. So how does he handle the physical defensive side of the game now when he's going to be elevated just a bit more in ice time, bit more responsibility, a bit more against the other team's toughest opposition?
Yeah, I think the one we maybe you didn't think I was going to bring up, Bjorn Foot. Mm-hmm. Took a step back last year, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Over 100 games in the NHL. I think he needs to take the next step. I think the fact that there's always going to be injuries, he's going to play in the NHL at some point this season. Where's the next step for him? He's going to be playing top line minutes, so he's going to have plenty of opportunity to do so in the AHL. But what is that? Is it defining his role or defining his game? He just seems a little bit of an amoeba. Where do you think that comes for him?
I think that's a really good way to put it, is defining, what is Tobias Bjornfot's game? Is he going to be a Jacob Moverari-esque shutdown defensive defenseman that has, puck moving capabilities? Is he going to be somebody that has a little bit more pep in his step that can actually, lead a rush or join a rush? What is his role going to be? And I think this is a really good chance for him to take a step back. Let's reset, clear the mind, and start fresh. And I'm very interested. He's going to be one of the guys that I'm going to be watching as much as I can with the Reign this year, is Tobias Bjornfot, because he's still so young and at a position that the Kings are just begging for somebody to play lefty. So I think for him, it's more about defining, what type of player he's going to be. And again, just getting more comfortable, getting a little bit more confidence, frankly, too. I think that's probably playing a factor here as well.
Is there one more player that you want to bring up that maybe needs to take the next step for the Kings to take that evolution?
Well, I think it's, and I don't know, you maybe I'll ask you what you think of this, but is it somewhat telling that, so the Kings go out, they trade for Victor Arvidsson, the Kings go out, they trade for Kevin Fiala, we get to the start of the season, and you have, Quentin Byfield at center. They have a former center that they push to the wing in Gabe Velarde, and it's going great right now. You do have Kaliev, so there's that. But I think at some point you really want to see like a Sammy Fagemo. We saw it last year, so by all accounts, like he's getting close. But I would say I want to see one of these wingers in Ontario, whether it's Kupari, I'm assuming he's going to be a winger, or whether it's Fagemo, really take a legitimate big step to like this kid needs to just, they can't keep him down anymore. He's too impactful. They got to get him up to the NHL, like just beat down the door to the Kings, make them have to find a way to call you up, because I think what's we've talked about, what kind of is lacking is like that impact forward that the Kings have developed in the system. We're starting to see it, right? Maybe with Kempe's breakout last year, Kaliev is percolating, but now's the time for one of these. Kupari, Fagemo, I think are the closest to. I'm not including Turcotte in that right now. I just want to see him be healthy. But for me, like Kupari and Turcotte are two guys, or Kupari and Fagemo are two guys that I want to see dominate the AHL and say, you got to find a way to get us up.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's interesting that you bring another AHL person, because there's going to be injuries, and you don't want call-ups only to be because of injuries, which I think a lot of the call-ups were last year, and multiple players performed well, but you want to see them grab this opportunity. Velarde right now is grabbing the opportunity.
Yep.
He was the first one given, but Fagemo, if he's scoring on pace for 40 plus goals, like you got to bring that kid up at that point, right? If Kupari is an averaging a point per game in the AHL, which he could, you got to bring that kid up. I mean, Elias Anderson was playing center, so I wonder if they do put Kupari. Now that was one preseason game, right, so who knows? But I wonder if they do put Kupari on the wing because of that.
Yeah, I do want to see that. I just, obviously with the way the Kings are down the middle, his opportunity in the immediate future is going to be on the wing. So that, I mean, barring injury, obviously, but yeah, that's what I want to see, one of these guys, make an impact. And I'd say for Brandt Clarke, like, it's tough to take next. I just want to see what steps these first steps are.
He needs to take a first step.
So
coming in at number 3 is top line.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this has been the most legit top line. I think Russell said, and I would agree with him, since Gaborik and Justin Williams were on the wings of Kopitar. Fiala takes a penalty last night, but Kempe gets a goal with Kopitar there. Things are going to happen. Corsi was relatively, I believe, pretty good. If somebody posted online, or was it bad?
It was bad.
Okay.
I think the first period wasn't bad, but for the game, it was bad.
It's just, so you said they had no answer for Jack Eichel. Was that pretty much the MO for the whole game, in your opinion? And we already talked about the game, but then going forward, what do you envision from this top line? Obviously, they're not going to be that bad every game.
I think they're going to be fine. I'll be honest. Like, I love the trio. I think that they, especially in the first period, I thought they looked dangerous. Like, I thought they had the opportunities off the rush. Kempe's dangerous off the rush. Kopitar, I thought, had a pep in his step in the first period yesterday. It kind of like it faded as the game went along. So I'm really optimistic though about this line. No, I think adding a guy like Fiala is the exact type of skill player that they need. We'll see how many games they get, and I think it probably depends on wins and losses and how things go here in the early going to see before Coach McClellan decides to kind of shuffle things up a bit. But yeah, they struggled last night. Against the Eichel line, it was ugly. The Eichel line out shot attempted them 10-4. So that's a little uneasy, because this is a division where you have to deal with Eichel, or you have to deal with McDavid, or you have to deal with Draisaitl. So you have to be able to answer the bell at both ends of the ice, because it's going to be tough to hem those guys in their own zone. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see as we go along here, how that line handles some of those. Now, that's what I'll be curious about. But from a talent level and what we saw in preseason, what I saw in the first period, like it could take a little bit for the chemistry to come, but I think this has the opportunity to be a really, really dynamic line.
Just spitballing off the top of your head, where do you think they fit in the Pacific as far as best top lines?
Oh boy, it's as a trio. I mean, I can't put them above a line that has McDavid on it, because he's that good. I kind of lean the same way with McDavid, and you saw McDavid with Eichel, what he did yesterday. Vancouver's going to have a pretty good line. I'd say it could be a top 5 line in the division. Is that too optimistic? I think that's
fair.
I think that could be reasonable.
Yeah, I think you're looking at the Flames. The line with Huberdeau is obviously going to have some pep.
Great call.
Vancouver should have a good first line. I think if they're a top, I think their range is anywhere between top 3 to top 5 if they start clicking. Just because I think that talent is that good on that line.
I do too. No, I think the talent, the potential is there to be a really, really dynamic line. So we'll see. We'll see if it clicks.
Question number 4 coming to the team is special teams. We alluded to it in the first game. We want to see it take some steps and move forward. Preseason looked great. First game, not so great. We've been talking a little bit ad nauseum over the summer there, but it's still a question. I mean, Are they going to get it to where it doesn't look stagnant? I mean, I know they call it the umbrella for a reason, but we don't need all perimeter play if that's what you're talking about. So where's the biggest question marks for you if you want to go through the either special teams, power play, penalty kill, and where does it need to improve on if you want to just give somebody maybe that hasn't listened to you gripe about it all summer?
I would say on that first unit, and I guess let's just say that we're not going to shuffle the personnel. They go with the personnel, the 5 guys that they had. I think that I would just flip Fiala and Kempe, put Kempe back on the right circle. I don't love Arvidsson there. I prefer him on the second unit with somebody a little bit more of a kind of a creativity to them than an Arvidsson. He's a little bit more of like a brute force kind of bulldog shoot everything type of player that I kind of like a little bit more creativity, but that's just me. Again, I think the move of Kopitar to the left circle is a positive. I'd prefer to see somebody like Fiala floating around the bumper than Kempe. I think Kempe does a nice job on the right side, but to be successful, it's utilizing the bumper more. But a way to utilize the bumper more is to incorporate some down low, below the goal line options that was non-existent on the first unit yesterday. We saw it on the second unit. I said it earlier. That's what it led directly to the Kaliev goal right after the power play ended. Velarde down low, the play to him below the goal line. You need to open up space below the goal line and have that be a threat, because if that's going to bring in your bumper player, all the perimeter stuff is just a waste of time to me. I hate it. And we've seen it for years with the Kings. It used to be a Kopitar on the right circle, right? And it'd be Doughty to Kopitar, Clapper. Kopitar to Doughty, Clapper. It's just not going to get it done. It's too often. That's a one and done thing. I was disappointed to see the setup and who was where yesterday. But it's game 1. Let's see. I do think there were some positives. I do think because zone entry was an issue last year. Not as big of an issue as the end zone, but it was an issue. And I think there's way more potential for that to be awesome with Kempe and Fiala. There was times in the neutral zone where that looked really nice. And again, the second unit I thought looked much better than the first in terms of end zone play.
Now you've been a big proponent of not having Deneau and Trevor Moore on there. Do you think Byfield gets some opportunity? Do you think it's, like you said, it's just been the fact that he had a week off because of illness? How do you think that kind of shakes out maybe going forward?
Really interested to see that myself, Brandon. I think that's a good question. You could sell me on Deneau staying there, but I don't want to see both Deneau and Moore. You could sell me on one of them, and I would probably lean Deneau, I guess. But I'm very interested to see. I think Byfield is going to he will get a look at some point in special teams. He has to. So we'll see, and it could be as early as game 2 against Seattle. I wouldn't think that they want to keep him off of the power play for too long. I think they want to get him involved. He had a pretty good first game. I think they'll reward him. I think you'll see Byfield maybe get some looks on the second pair. At least I hope. Again, I'd tweak the personnel. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. I suspect they'll probably give this a few games here to let it see how it plays itself out, with the exception of maybe Byfield getting a spot in the second unit tomorrow.
Carter Scores comes in here. PK looked miles better than it did last season in the first game. What did you see on the defensive side?
Yeah, I did think it was better. It didn't seem the Kings got beat up kind of like the Reign did too with some of those cross seam passes last year. I thought they were a bit more well equipped this time around. What was tough, I mean, I just don't think a guy like a Matt Roy had a strong game in general. So I think that just kind of hurt things a little bit. He just wasn't. I think he had a bad. I don't know if it was a power play goal or if it wasn't, or if it was right before a power play that led to a penalty. He had a bad giveaway, but overall, I do think the penalty kill was better. I'd like to see an aggressive penalty kill in the defensive zone. I like putting pressure on the guys on the power play. I think it make them rush a little bit. So I'd be interested to see how things go the rest of the season. But I'm more optimistic on the penalty kill. I think it seems a bit fluky for the Kings to be as bad as they were last year, and I think that they'll get better. I think there's too much talent from a penalty kill standpoint with Kopitar, with Deneau, with Iafallo. I think there's too many. Trevor Moore's a really good penalty killer, so I think there's reason for optimism with the penalty kill.
I think so too. It's going to be something that both are going to have to be better for us to make a huge leap. I think one, getting better will help us be more consistent in games and not have those, late blowouts or even just adding 5 or 6 points to the season. It definitely would have helped us in the playoffs. Hopefully we see both get into the middle 10. I think that's reasonable to see that both, the middle 10 spots somewhere in there. And that would definitely help the Kings.
And one of the other earlier questions that ties directly into this is goaltending. Goaltending and special teams. That's a thing. There some goaltenders will save you and bail you out, and if you have goaltenders that are able to do that, that's going to make your PK look a lot better than it even is. So.
Going to the last question of the night here, right decor. Obviously, we're going to have that trio rotation to start the season. We'll see how it works out if they decide to keep Clark. I think they will keep him past 9 games. But how do you see that core sticking out? Do you think that we will eventually see Mervoire come up, or do you think there's this trade looming? I mean, but let's just start with the first 9 games. How does this decor start? Is it going to be a constant rotation? Is it mainly just going to be Clark and Walker? How do you kind of envision that kind of working out?
I think it could depend on how well Clark played. We're assuming again, Brant Clark is playing on Thursday against Seattle. So we'll see obviously if and when that becomes official, but if he does play, I think it could be really dependent on how well how good he looks, because if he looks that good, then they're going to play him. The kicker is you're not waiving Dursey. You're not waiving Walker. So if Clark stays, this is your decor. And this is, it's going to be Doughty, Roy, Clark down the right side. I know they said they'd play Clark on the left, and maybe they will from time to time, but I don't know. I don't know. I think he'd probably best to play him on the right as much as you can early on and avoid that, him playing his off wing as he's getting accustomed to the NHL game.
Yes,
right?
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, you're already asking him to do a lot at 19, and then you're going to make him play a position he's not used to playing, and then so if he can, then if he suits up tomorrow, is Jersey still power play too?
Well, that's another great question. Yeah, I have been saying so. I'm not gonna. I shouldn't go and say otherwise. If Clark's on this team, he's got to see power play time. So he better be out there. Now, I think the question could be, do you see 2 defensemen? Do you see Clark and Dursey out there? And I think that's very reasonable. I think Dursey's a better power play option than, say, Trevor Moore, as an example. So I think that's realistic if they do that and keep Dursey and Walker's the one that sits. I'd be very curious. But yeah, Clark's got to play power play. He has to.
Yeah, I think that's evident there. I think it might be we might just see a consistent swap in and out and see how it goes. But plans are meant to be changed sometimes. And if Clark comes in tomorrow and you see him with 2 points, like how do you not play the kid again, right? Like I mean, at that point, and I think it's going to be up to somebody out of those 3 has to seize the opportunity, and then I think the top 6 will be more firm. But right now there's going to be a rotation. If I had to put my money on it, I would say eventually by the end of the month, it's going to be Walker as the odd man out.
I'd probably lean the same way, but odd man out in the sense that he's the 7th D and he'll still fill in. He'll get some time here and there, right? Because it's just the nature of it. But you asked about does Mo Ferrari get called up? Does Bjornfot get called up? Not unless there's an injury. There's no room. They can't send anybody down. So, I'd be surprised if they did anything, even if Walker struggled. I think he's here. He's under contract for this year and next, if I'm not mistaken. So, I think these first few games, while they get some guys figured out and figure out where they fit, right? Who's the best left D option of these three? Is it Dursey? Is it Walker? Is it Clark? It's going to be pretty fluid here for a little bit.
Yeah, if we're getting there. If somebody takes the reins, you gotta roll with that horse, right? So, I mean, I think the only person that really has that power is going to be Clark, right? I mean, if he blossoms, then that changes the whole dynamic. If he struggles, you have that option to send him down. Even though I don't think there's anything left for him in the OHL, you still have that option. Whereas, like, if he blossoms, and that forces you to do a lot of things, whether that be play him all the time, keep Walker and rotate him in when you can, whether that gives Blake a confidence in a trade. I think Clark is going to dictate the majority of what happens on the right side by his play in the beginning here.
And I'll probably get, complaints for saying this, but I think if Clark stays, there has to be a trade at some point this season for a left shot D. It's a weak spot right now.
Yeah, it is. We'll see it. And Matt P, we won't keep any more time on the trade Chikrin segment. We're not going to try to do one of those every week, but it is a need. And if there's more rumors that come up about any potential trades, we will be covering that stuff. So I think Clark is pretty much, he holds his fate in his hands, and we'll see how he plays in these first 9 games here and what is asked of him. I think he should be on the power play. I think he should be at least rotating in there, if not playing all the time when he's in these games. It's nice to have a Dursey to back him up if you see him start to struggle. But if he's struggling at what he's best at, then he's not ready to play at this level. So I think you need to put players in their best positions to succeed.
And I think there's a little bit of pressure here on a guy like Matt Roy, who is going to be paired with Dursey, and a guy like Alex Adler, who's going to be paired with Brant Clark, right? To kind of get these young kids and kind of ease them along into their first, their tough minutes. They're getting used to this stuff, and they're going to be making mistakes. And, the game like Dursey had last night, it's you need Matt Roy to be that anchor. You need Alex Adler to be these anchors to kind of help these guys along.
Yeah, we can't have many more games of Matt Roy like it was last night. It was not very good on his end, and I think he'll tighten the screws, so to speak, and get that in shape. But yeah, those are our top 5 issues going into the season. I think we're going to be doing a top 5. We might be doing a top Reign episode when the Reign start playing their games and see what we want to see out of that team. But hey, hockey is upon us. You can't be too mad at that. Game 1 down, 81 to go. Playing the Kraken starting tomorrow night if you're watching live, or we'll just say Thursday night, whenever you decide to listen to this. And hopefully we get 2 points and we get it rolling. Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure speak with you. The tandem is always fun, even though we miss Russ from time to time. Go ahead and look at all of our articles there at hockeyroyalty.com. Buy your merch. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones that Hockey Royalty is the only place to get LA Kings news, or your favorite place at least. Thank you guys, all the fans in the chat, for making this thing interesting and listening to us at home. We really appreciate you guys. And as always on this podcast, go Kings go.
Thanks for listening.